I'm Natalie Kapelik-Nixon. I am the chairman of the Committee of the Orthodox Youth Directors in North America. If you're not sure what that is a committee blessed by the Assembly of Bishops, and it consists of all of the directors of youth, young adult, and camping ministry within our various archdioceses. One of the things that we do is hopefully provide resources to the Orthodox youth workers around the country. And this is one of the services that we started providing last year, which is giving you webinars based on topics that have been submitted to us from youth workers during our Youth Worker and Camping Conference. So briefly, again, I'm Natalie Kapelik-Nixon. I'm the Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries and our camping programming end for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the USA. In addition to that, I am a mom of an 11-year-old named Theodore who has Down syndrome, and I can tell you right now, one of his favorite places on earth is summer camp. So, coming from two very different perspectives as a director, but also as a mom. And so I'd like to turn it over for my my colleagues to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Father Anthony. I'm looking at my pictures. They're aligned probably differently for everyone. So go ahead, Father Anthony.
Good afternoon. I'm Father Anthony Eog. I'm the camp director of the Antiochian Village Camp for the Antiochian Archdiocese, as well as overseeing several other departments that deal with youth ministry and young adults in the Archdiocese. My background, I've been doing youth ministry for a little over 30 years now. Pretty much I went from being a kid to doing youth ministry, and many people still think I am a kid. I have a background in special education. I was a teacher, special ed for a number of years before I went into the ministry. And then the most important thing I think about me, especially as it pertains to today, is that I'm the father of a young man named Mark, my son, my middle child, who is 28 years old and has Down syndrome. And he has three favorite places. Church is the first. The bowling alley's number 2, but camp is a close third. And now I'll pass it on down to Father Stephen and Pani Daria.
Hello, everyone. I'm Father Stephen Leposki.
I'm Pani Daria.
We both work at a Camp Nazareth, which is the youth camp for the American Carpatho-Russian Orthodox Diocese in North America. We're located in Mercer, Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Pittsburgh. Been here for 10 summers, coming up on 10 summers. Before that, we were together in Corning, New York at a parish, part of the American Carpatho-Russian Diocese. And then we're assigned here at Camp Nazareth, and again, have been here for 10 years. We also have a son. His name is Joshua. We have 3 boys, actually, and 1 girl, Sam, Josh, Nick, and Annie. Sam is 20, Annie is 13, Nick is 16, and Joshua, who also happens to have Down syndrome, is 18 today. So he's celebrating his 18th birthday today, and he has planned, among other things, Father Anthony, bowling as well, because for Josh, too, he bowled a 146 on his own ball the other day. The guy is a pretty good bowler in his own right, but he has bowling planned. When Sam comes home on spring break, he's going bowling with his older brother, Sam. Anyway, we've been here again for 10 years and enjoy the ministry here together, really as co-directors.
And actually, Joshy's number 1 is church. 2 is
church.
Yeah, and camp. I mean, both of Josh, that is really his priority. So we're very blessed. We're very blessed.
And blessed to be on with all of you today.
Yeah. So thank you to my conspirators here on presenting with you all today. I had mentioned that we are doing these webinars because it is a product of feedback from our Youth Worker Conference. We chose this topic out of the many that had come to us because it seems to be a conversation that many want to have, and one that keeps popping up here and there, but a conversation that maybe hasn't been gone into depth. And it's an important one because so many of our kiddos have different types of, as Father likes to say it, unique needs. Father Stephen coined that for us the other day. And it's something that we need to talk about within the church because we are all members of Christ's body, and how do we minister to everyone within the body. So that's kind of what motivated us to want to take on this topic today and discuss it with all of you. So I just want to remind you before we kind of get into things, there is an icon, I believe it's on the bottom of your screen there, that says Q&A, where you can submit questions to us, which we'll answer a little later on in the webinar. So I'd like to start out with, many times having a success story with ministering to our campers with unique needs at our program starts with the preparation end of it. Before we arrive. So I'd like to have our panelists discuss a little bit, suggestions that we have for that pre-planning so that we can have a positive experience.
Father Anthony?
So one of the things that we typically do is we encourage parents to give us as much information as they feel is appropriate for us to have in order to best meet the needs of their children. That's particularly important when it comes to medical issues, but also issues that deal with unique abilities where a particular camper might need some extra help, and also for us to be able to discern if are the right fit for their camper, because we know that's not always the case for a variety of reasons. So the more information we get from parents, the better we're going to be equipped to serve their children. With that information, typically, then we will be able to match up the best staff member to be that child's counselor, because we also know that not all our counselors have the same gifts and talents, and some are perhaps better poised to handle children that have a unique set of needs, whatever it might be. And we then try to find the best fit between campers and staff. So I would say one of the most important things is getting as much information as possible from our parents or guardians or whoever else might be able to provide that appropriate information, and then open a conduit for discussion to make sure that this is really the best setting for their child.
Yeah, that Father Anthony, I know that can be sometimes, difficult, not just with, say, my son Joshua, sharing everything that Joshua is about with either the school or a camp he's going to or something locally that we're doing with him. I know that can be challenging for parents. I'm one of those parents. What does Joshie need? What are the particular things that, we see as parents? And frankly, I think sometimes we don't see everything. Sometimes as parents, or we're so used to our child on a day-to-day basis who has unique needs that we just minister to them without a thought. It's just, this is what we do. And I think it's hard, even for me as a parent, I think it's hard for parents to translate that when they're releasing their child to someone else's care, to think of everything. That's not always easy. And so that dialogue is essential. I completely and wholeheartedly agree. I know it's what Derry and I do here, whether it's on the phone or video chats or whatever. And sometimes it takes a while for parents to think about the different things that they don't think about on a day-to-day basis. Because again, it's just what they do to take care of their child. Half the time with Derry and I taking care of Joshua, we're just doing what we do. And then when the school asks us questions, then we begin to think about, oh yeah, we actually do that. Oh, we don't do that. Oh yeah, we need to do that. And so that dialogue is essential.
I have to remember I mute myself. I do this often in meetings too. I agree. I think that, having that line of communication is probably first and foremost the best step that we can have. I know, Father Mpani, you also do some special staff training. You had mentioned, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit, sort of in that pre-preparation as well.
Sure. I know that in discussing with Natalie and Father Anthony, prior to sort of organizing our thoughts for today's webinar to make it, as effective as it can be in the medium. We wrote down thoughts to each other, and one of the things that we do at camp, and it depends on the year how much, but during our staff training, we have brought in child psychologists and child counselors to talk with the staff. We've brought in special needs classroom teachers from the local high school and elementary school where Joshie goes. We've developed a relationship with these folks. They're the experts in their fields, dealing with unique needs, the particular needs of students in the classroom setting and in the community setting when they go out into the community. So we've brought in those child counselors, special needs or life skills classroom teachers to talk to the staff about, let's say, not every unique or special need, but ones that they might and probably will encounter. What might those be? Child who has ADD or ADHD, someone who has autism or Asperger's, or who has Down syndrome, someone who is struggling with an emotional issue, and talk to counselors and other staff members, because again, it's a larger staff. It's not just the particular counselor, although that's like the front line. It's everybody. It's a whole camp family, right? So basically educating us. What do these children deal with on a day-to-day basis that I'm unaware of? What do the parents have to do? What behaviors can I expect? And how do we deal with them? We found it enormously beneficial to bring in the teachers, child counselors, and child psychologists. Even if you're not the specific ones responsible for the 24/7 care of the camper, i.e. the counselor, we found it enormously beneficial as a whole staff to become more empathetic, to understand a little bit more. That means we support each other a little bit more. We change our thinking. We change sort of our mindset, our heart set, and what we're willing to do to adapt the program. It has been really enormously beneficial. We even actually brought in parents to talk to the staff. To have, and again, for us, in our particular situation, enormously beneficial.
And Penny, I think that is a wonderful suggestion for camps, because a lot of times people don't understand what it means to have behaviors. And especially a lot of our young people who have what are called hidden disabilities, people might see a behavior in that young person and think that it's just them making bad choices or acting out, not realizing that it is a behavior associated to their condition. So I think the more that we can understand about what behaviors are and how that it normally stems from whatever diagnosis they have is really important. Again, like you said, for people to be more empathetic and understand what the situation is about. So I think that's a good thing for us to do that, but also for us to be cognizant of that, of helping people understand what behaviors are and helping our staff to understand what behaviors are. Father Anthony, you want to chime in on that?
I do, because I think it's important to learn, and I think you mentioned, Father Stephen, from our parents, to see the cues of the do's and don'ts with their particular child, because they have the most intimate knowledge of their child. It allows us then to better serve that child who comes to the camp. But also, the important part about all this is, to the extent we can, confidentiality is obtained, or is maintained, I should say, as best we can. So we don't go telling everybody about the unique needs of every single camper that's in camp. Only those that need to know, so that they can better serve, will know what to look for, so that they can better serve that camper's need. And then back to staff training, we do the same kind of program where we bring in people to speak in broad generalities, but then also they will be able to meet specifically with counselors about more specific issues if that's something that's needed. We make those people available throughout the summer to them. So I think all those become very important. And then also in the recruiting process we use for hiring staff, we look for people who might have some special education background or might have some experience working with people with unique disabilities.
Yeah, Father Anthony, I think if you're able to do that, that is a wonderful help. We've been very blessed in our program that one of our camping staff, who is now one of our program directors, has over 15 years of experience as a paraprofessional within a school district here in the Pittsburgh area. And because of that, she's able to give advice, to the senior staff, and then, to trickle that down to who it needs to go to on how to best handle situations as they're coming up and make everything a little more smooth. So if you are able to have individuals like that on your staff, it makes a huge difference. Yeah. I have one other little thing I wanted to throw in on this particular point. We were talking about that communication with parents beforehand. I think a really important thing within those discussions is if you're talking about any medications that our camper might be taking, that we want to make sure that there isn't sort of a vacation from taking our medications while at camp. We know that those medications are there to help make the best of our day. And that's what helps us during the school year, and it will only also help us during our time at camp as well. So, to encourage families that not to take vacations from taking medications while they're with us at camp. I think that's an important part of that discussion we need to have prior to coming to camp. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next step, unless we got something else. Go ahead, Father Stephen.
Yeah, sort of. For me, last thing, Natalie. I know that when we were, preparing for the webinar, we also, I think, recognized as directors and each of us having a child with unique or special needs, there's varying degrees, and I know we might cover a little bit more later on about that, but one size doesn't fit all. When Pani and I came to camp 10 years ago, we actually went to the different school districts to see what they offered for Joshua. What kind of classrooms did they have? Was he integrated? Was he, mainstreamed? Was he put in a life skills classroom? What was the program for him? It turned out that the district that we lived in, or that the township is in, was the best program we felt as parents for his particular needs. But just like the school districts offer different levels of program, education, care, whatever, each child is unique. And in the process that we go through as directors, we need to remember that. And I think so do parents. My son is not like Mark, is not like Theo. My son is my son. While they may have particular commonalities, they have particular needs that aren't, it can't be labeled in like a cookie cutter approach. That's why I think what Father Anthony mentioned earlier, the dialogue with parents is essential. You can't get around it, and it has to be detailed.
And what I'd like to suggest too is that for those camp directors out there that aren't sure whether they're able to meet the needs of campers with unique needs, is to invite parents during your camping program to come and see the program in action, and then have a conversation with them in the midst of your camping program so they can see what happens throughout the day, see how they think their camper will do in the midst of your program.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Father Anthony. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because it kind of segues into what we're going to talk about next, which is what can we do within our programs, and what do the three of us, because we all already do things to make it possible for our young campers with disabilities to attend, what can we do within our programming? So I'll toss up to either one of you who would want to go first. What we can do within our programming to make so we can minister to our young people.
Sure. So in school, our children have IEPs. To some extent, to the degree we can, having some kind of individualized plan that will work for campers is a good thing if we have the administrative abilities to do that. Nonetheless, we want to find ways for them to succeed, and I think the buddy system works out really well. Something we've been able to use from time to time, where there's a camper that matches up really well with another camper to help them succeed. And in fact, my experience has been for lack of a better term, the camper who doesn't have the unique needs has actually gained a great deal from going through a session of camp with a camper who needs a little bit of assistance along the way. But the other things that we do is we have the ability to have co-counselors. So if there is a camper who needs a little extra attention for whatever reason, we might put 2 counselors in that cabin to help make sure that camper succeeds in everything possible. So trying to find ways to make sure that they succeed. And a lot of that, again, comes back to the communication with parents, finding out what's worked best for their child, whether it's at home, in school, or in the community, and how can we then transition that to camp.
I know that.
Sorry, I was saying Father Stephen Panidaria.
Go ahead, Father Anthony. Go ahead, Natalie.
No, I was tossing it over to you, but I had that mute on again. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I know that. Again, we've traded comments online before the webinar. I wholeheartedly agree. I've watched. Again, for the personal experience, I've watched Joshua. We've watched Joshua. He's in his senior year in high school now. Be the beneficiary of other students' support, like looking at him as just another student, as just another friend, as someone that makes their day better. And we've watched him grow up in that environment, and it's been so beneficial. So the support of one's peers, and that's a culture that doesn't just come from anywhere. That comes from the administrators and the teachers and the upbringing of the children in the school and the school spirit and everything else. I mean, it's a culture. And so, having a buddy system is part of that culture that makes every child better, and I know that Derry and I have experienced it this year with Joshua in the school system. Let's say, again, I'm bringing it home, making it personal to me, where he's been made better by his peers, meaning he's more social because of them. He's more confident to try new things because of them. And having that connection with someone, a buddy, a big brother, a big sister, a little brother, a little sister is great. I also offered to my fellow directors that I'm also careful with that buddy system, because I want to make sure that every child has an opportunity to experience camp in the fullest. I tell my son Nicholas, who plays basketball, we tell our son Nicholas, who plays basketball with Josh, they're both on the varsity team. Nick, help your brother as you're able, but you need to be focused on the game. You need to be focused on the practice. You can't be one-on-one with Josh all the time. You can't be going to fetch the basketball for him, because you need to be dialed in to your practice or to your game. And so I'm also careful to make sure that each child, including the child that has particular unique needs, has the opportunity to experience the program in the fullest. I know very well exactly what Father Anthony says on a personal level. When you do that buddy system, that big sister, little sister, big brother, little brother system, there's growth there that isn't quantifiable, isn't measurable for both in a camping program.
And the other part about that too is the buddy system works for everybody in the cabin and in the camp because it's a good safety measure. So it's not like you're isolating this one camper and he's the only one or she's the only one with a buddy. You have other people that have buddies too, and that way everything's still normal for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to move on to a couple other suggestions in this area. Before I do, I just want to remind everyone that you can submit questions to us. There is a button at the bottom of your screen if there are any questions you want to submit. I wanted to talk a little bit about inviting parents to be part of the program if need be. One of our great success stories, one of our parents wasn't sure if her son was ready to be a part of the full program. And so we had her actually apply and come on staff, and we had a long conversation with her beforehand as to, what were the parameters of what we were hoping to do. And, she really wanted him, like you said, Father Stephen, really experience on his own. But she was there in case there was something that he became anxious about or overwhelmed about. And for the first 2 years, he actually didn't stay in the cabin. We have a staff building, and he stayed with his mom in one of the rooms. But for the rest of the day, he was with his cabin. Even on a lot of the break time, he'd go to the cabin, and they had a bunk for him that was his bunk, even though I wasn't sleeping there. But as far as, bathroom times, toilet, taking showers, that sort of thing, and sleeping, he went over to the staff quarters. And it worked really, really well for him. And as he got a little older, he transitioned into going into the cabins. And the extra blessing of that, his mother loved camp so much that she stayed on staff after he transferred into the cabins. And I got a really wonderful staff member for about 6 years because she fell in love with the ministry so much herself. So I think, that's something that we can try. Father Anthony, I know that you said you had a similar situation.
Right. We had a family who was already sending a couple of their kids to camp. They had a child who they knew wouldn't be able to come to camp and do the whole 24 hours a day in the cabin and everything because of his unique needs. So we arranged for them to come stay at our conference center, which is adjacent to the camp. And their camper participated with actually an aide throughout the day. So from the time everybody got up, that camper participated as full as he could in all the activities throughout the day. And when the cabin went back to their cabin, the campers went back to their cabin, then he would go back to his room to get his break, to wash up, to sleep, whatever it was needed, change clothes. But otherwise, he was in the midst of the regular program and really loved his experience. And what was amazing, too, is how the rest of the campers responded and didn't see anything different, treated him like one of the rest of the campers from the cabin. And it was a huge success story all the way around for everybody involved.
We had the same thing, Father Anthony and Natalie, and how we started was we have a family camp weekend. And because at first the parents were very nervous about, how he was going to do and how the program was going to be too long. So we started off saying, come to the family camp weekend. And then it's just flourished from there. He loved the family camp. It was only 2.5 days, but got used to the schedule. And then he started coming as a camper. And actually this year, he decided that, and we felt that he was ready, to do the transition. And actually his parents didn't stay all the time. They stayed locally, but then came to camp during the day just to, see how the transit. It was amazing and wonderful. And everybody helps him. And I think it really is. It's a wonderful thing when you see the kids helping the other kids, and then the kids with the uniqueness help other kids. So it's like it kind of is a whole.
Yeah.
There were commonalities there because it was the parents who stayed at the camp, you know, and then were like yours, Natalie, became staff members and continued to come, you know, and when they were comfortable too, they stayed off site. You know, at first it was they stayed on site, and the young man, like you, would go and go up to the staff cabin where they were staying, you know, and take care of his needs, and then bounce back to the cabin without, as Father Anthony had mentioned, without like it being a big deal. It's not a big deal. Everybody has, in this way, needs. Every child, right? So, okay, so we're talking about particular, unique needs, special needs, unique needs, particular needs, you know, but every child has needs, and, you know, we all do, I guess, right? So, you know, but there were certain common ground. There was discussions with the parents. The parents were willing to come and able to come. Not every parent is able to come. They have to work. And so they might not be able to come during the summer, but in this case, yes. And then it's a culture, you know, that they're in the body, in Christ's body. We're just members of it, you know. And creating that culture can sometimes take a while. Like it just, you know, and being patient with it and bringing parents along, and frankly, learning yourself how to minister in this way. So yeah, I think there's commonalities in all of these stories that we can learn from, certainly.
Yeah, and I think you both touched on something, 2 points that I'd like to take a little further. Pani, thank you for bringing up about family camp. A lot of our ministries around the country do provide family camps, and I think that's a great way to come and get acclimated. You know, to see the property, beyond the property for the first time. Normally our family camps are for a shorter time. And, you know, to meet the staff, see the property, and not only, I think, for our campers, but for the parents to feel a little more secure about where their child is coming. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion about coming to family camp and getting acclimated prior. Father, you talked about sometimes parents might not be able to come. And, you know, I think something from our end, administrative end, is looking into the possibility of having paraprofessionals on your staff from your local community. You know, all of our school districts have paraprofessionals, and you can try to solicit to have some people on your staff with that sort of background, and then they are there and they can be paired with a camper to help them throughout their day as needed. So I think that's another option that we can all kind of look into is, you know, looking for those professionals in our area who might be looking for a summer camp experience or extra work during the summer and could be on your staff. I'm going to move to our next point, but very quickly, Father Stephen, something you had mentioned earlier, but I'm just going to throw it in. You had suggested maybe having video calls or audio calls with families and campers prior to coming to camp. And you said that you've had success with that in the past.
Yeah, I know also that Father Anthony wants to follow up with something too there, Natalie. But yes, in particular cases, in addition to phone calls with the parents or, you know, Zoom conference with the parents or Skype or whatever, in particular circumstances, we have actually talked directly with, you know, the child who's coming to reassure them so they hear the sound of our voice, so they see our faces. So before they even get here, if they don't have an opportunity to come to family camp, or as Father Anthony suggested, you know, the parents come and visit the camp while it's, you know, running so that they can see, you know, what's going on, so that they grow comfortable too, sending their child to camp. We've just got on the phone with them or on a video chat with them, and it just sort of breaks the ice. Now, we don't always do that, but in the cases where we have, and I can count them on one hand, it's been a good thing. It's been a good thing where we can answer questions, get to know the child a little bit more, but more importantly, so that they just can see and hear us. And if there is anything that they're nervous about, scared of, maybe we can allay it a little bit for them.
I think it's a great suggestion for our camp administrative staffs to try. So I think we've all seen a theme here, which is, and Father, you've said this, oh, he's good, that all of our kids are different. And that's all of our kids at camp, not just our kids with unique needs. But, you know, I think one of the things that keeps coming up is we need to look at things individually. So I just want to talk about maybe some best practices or suggestions we would have on how we have those conversations when it comes to those case-by-case, you know, situations. You know, what are things as camp directors or admin within our camps that we should do and can do when we're looking at each individual young person who's brought to us? Father Anthony, you want to start off?
Okay. So just one last thing I want to chime in from what Father Stephen had mentioned a moment ago, though, is that one of the things we also do is a program we call Village at Home, where we'll go visit our parishes. And it's basically for the sake of all parents feeling comfortable with who they're about to entrust their children into somebody else's care for 2 weeks at a time. And that's a great way then also for parents to have the confidence in our staff, because we bring some of our staff with us. So I think there's lots of ways to build those bridges because that's an important thing. So as to the point about the uniqueness of every camper that comes into our way, one of the things that we do as a general practice at the Antiochian Village is that our nursing staff reviews every health form of every camper, which includes information that the parents provide, that things that we ought to know to help their child succeed while they're at camp. So then the nurse, if need be, can then follow up with parents to get more information about them and have a conversation more specifically. And then typically the nurse will sit down with the counselor assigned to that camper and give them as much information as they need to succeed, knowing that that information stays within a very limited window of who knows. It's a need-to-know basis. And so that allows us to make sure that a camper succeeds, because we make sure those who are working most closely with that child has the right information so that they can make sure that child succeeds in their time here and has the best experience possible. So I think it's an important, component of a best practice.
Yeah, and then Father Anthony, I know you mentioned earlier about the IEP, but developing that plan, I think is also essential. And the very first thing we talk about is having the conversations with the family. So that all sort of feeds, in a line, for, a sort of a procedure of where we should go. Father Stephen Punning-Derry, what would you like to add to this?
The only thing I was going to add is, and being a mom too, Joshua and stuff, just parents need to understand it's okay to tell us. We have definitely run into some circumstances that, we find out the second day, after calling a parent that, oh, by the way, he has an IEP, or, by the way, yes, he has, this. And I think that's where, we just have to make sure our programs, reach out to parents, or just parents know that it's okay to write something down. We're not, and I think some people will say, well, because, oh, you're going to say no. Well, no, that's not true. I think it's the more information we get about your child, it is better off. So it's okay to tell us, don't not write it on your forms. So that was the only thing I wanted to really make.
Yeah, and I sort of echo Pani's thoughts there. For me personally, and I know for my fellow directors and all of us at camp, I want it to be the best experience possible. I just need to know my limitations. For me, and I mentioned this to Natalie and to Father Anthony in email form, I just want to make sure that I know my limitations. My limitations as a director, the limitations of my staff. What are they capable of and what are they not capable of? what can they minister to effectively and make it the best experience possible for a camper, and what can't they do, frankly? What's beyond their skill set? Try to teach them skills, give them as much information as possible, give them a time to sort of plan in that planning process that Father Anthony talks about. But frankly, forget about unique needs for a moment. There have been campers who haven't had good experiences at our camp. I don't know how else to say that. Forgive me. I mean, the camp just wasn't for them, and it wasn't because they had unique needs. It just, they didn't like it. And not that they didn't like particular things. They just didn't like camp for whatever reason, or,
bugs.
What?
They don't like bugs.
Right.
Yeah, whatever it is. I just, so
I'm not an outdoor person, they would say.
I understand. We have our son Joshua who has Down syndrome. I mean, certain things are for him and certain things aren't. He plays varsity basketball, right? Okay, so he practices with the team, but he doesn't do every drill. They're very careful with him. He can't keep up. He just can't run that fast. And frankly, it's dangerous for him if he participates in particular fast drills. Well, when Pani and I talk with the coach, we go over this, and the coach is good about it and everything and wants Josh on the team. But he doesn't get in during the games but for 15 or 30 seconds or 45 seconds at the end of the game when the games are already decided. I'm okay with that as a dad. I recognize the limitations of my son Joshua. He's on the team. He suits up every time. He does warm-ups with them. He participates in practice, and when he's able, he gets into the game. And it's fabulous. It's wonderful. I cry every time. We cry every time, and whatever. I'm just saying that as a dad, I want to know my limitations. I want to know my sons, and I want to know also if I can push him, to achieve more. Same thing with camp for me. I want to make sure that I'm not making an emotional decision to allow a camper to come because I have my son Joshua. I want to see very clearly in that process that Father Anthony outlined of communication and talking with parents and listening to them and including medical staff and training our counselors and assigning the right ones and all of that, that I'm not making an emotional decision for me because I have a soft spot in my heart for children with unique needs because I see the development of my son Joshua and what he's capable of. So I guess in the end, I just want to know my limitations.
Yeah, and Father, I'm glad that you bring up that term, knowing limitations. And I think that goes to the end of, again, when we talk to our staff and train them, that, I think sometimes our staff feel, they don't want to not let us down. And so they don't always let us know when maybe they're struggling a little bit. And I think to really have that conversation with our staff and saying, if you're struggling a little bit with this situation, I think this is just advice anyway with our staff, but applying it to the situation, even if we do all of this planning ahead of time and preparation and we have a plan, things happen. And, I can equate it to the Theo being at school. We have his IEP, we have all sorts of plans put in place for his behaviors, but we also have it set up that if he's having a day where things just aren't going to plan, I get a call from the teacher and she just says, hey, things aren't going to plan today. This is what's happening. Do you have suggestions for this? And I appreciate that as his mom, because it's not like I don't know what's going on at school, or I get his daily report and I don't understand why he had a day that wasn't going well. They've included me in the conversation, and I very often can say, oh yeah, he does that at home. This is how we handle it. And then I can give them a suggestion for moving forward. So I think, really telling our staff, like, please, within that daily check-in with us or the conversations you have, if what we have in our plan isn't working, you need to let us know, because, then we can call the parents and say, hey, everything is going great, but we were just wondering if you had a suggestion concerning this particular thing. So I think that is something that we can really do as far as recognizing our limitations, but then taking it the step further on, what can we do about it. Father Anthony, I know there was something you wanted to say in all this.
Sure. One of the things too is, of course, camp life, you have to be flexible and adaptable because things change on the drop of a dime. But one of the things that I think it's important to do is for parents and for us as camp directors to let campers know if they're having struggles, who do they turn to? Do they turn to their counselor? Do they turn to the head counselor? Do they come to the camp director? And typically what I've done is, if I'm the one having the conversations with parents about whether we're going to be able to accommodate their child or not, is I tell them, if your child is having problems, if they're struggling, they need any help, come see me. Tell them, they don't have to work through any other system. Just come see me. So at least that way they know they've got a comfort level. And seldom do they ever come because they're succeeding. It's just they need to have that security blanket around them, knowing that somebody's going to support them if they have a struggle. A couple of other things that kind of came to light too is that making accommodations, I think, and having the flexibility to do that is an important thing. For example, we have a camper who just doesn't like loud music and the noise and things like that tend to happen sometimes at camp and like our evening programs. So the parent talked to me and said, okay, for this child to go sit in front of the health center and read a book on those couple of nights that happen during the week. And actually, absolutely, I said, if that's what that child needs to succeed, then that's what we'll do. And we've been able to work ways around those things. It's definitely the exception to the rule as opposed to the rule, but we want to make sure that a camper can succeed and we don't put them in an adverse situation where we know they're not going to do well.
Yeah. Father Anthony, I'm going to just really quickly show this while I can about your saying about giving those opportunities. This is my little guy at camp. Can you see the photo? He's got his headphones on because it was the dance day. And those are actually the two young ladies are two of his nannies that were there with him at camp, but it's too loud for him when we have our dances. And I sent his headphones with him. So, once because otherwise he would have been he would have been on the front porch, not wanting to be a part of it. But the fact that we thought ahead and sent his headphones, you can tell he's boogieing down. Because we had that, but maybe even having those sort of things already on our premises, like having some headphones on hand, having, one of the things I think we can also do is having some sensory things, all of our kids at our camping ministry, doesn't matter who it is, can have a meltdown at camp. Their schedule is different from home. Maybe they're homesick. Any kid can have a meltdown at camp. But how we handle it is differently. And I think for our kids with unique needs, maybe having a quiet room where, maybe they just need to go and have some of that quiet time and reflective time, maybe having some sensory things in that room for them, sensory balls or mats or whatever, so that they have a place where they could go and just get away for a minute if need be. So, I think having, if you're looking at it from an admin perspective, maybe if we just have some of those things already on hand. I think also being ready to come up with things like as picture schedules. And, we can snap that young person during their day and then have a picture schedule ready. And there's a great app on Google Eye that is, I think it's my kid's schedule or something like that. And you can actually upload pictures of your child and make a digital picture schedule. So even if you have a phone, the staff member has a phone or a tablet, and if you need a picture schedule, then they can go and actually adapt it right then and there, take a photo and upload it and put it into their picture schedule. If you don't have that ability, if you don't have internet, then, having on-hand picture schedules. So I think there are a lot of different things we can ask families to send with their kids. But I think also if we can be prepared and have some things on hand as well. So let me stop sharing Theo for a second and come back to everybody. So I just want to remind everyone, we do have, you can submit questions to us. There should be a button on the bottom of your screen. And I keep checking, so please, submit those questions. Fathers or Pani, anything on this? If not, I'm going to take us into our final little subject here that we wanted to cover.
Just the idea of developing resources for what you need to be able to do that, like Natalie mentioned, whether it's having some earmuffs around for the loud noise or various things of that need. There is one other resource, although it was geared towards parish life more so than camp life. Faith Tree Ministries, which is faithtree.org, has a book they put together called Removing Barriers, and it's about incorporating people with special needs in our parish communities. And so there's some good ideas in there how we might be able to utilize things and have the right resources at camp too.
Yeah, thank you, Father. So the last thing we wanted to cover today with all of you is kind of like Father Stephen said earlier, with any of our kids, they might not like camp, or it might not be the program for them, or it might not be the right fit. So we wanted to talk a little bit about alternatives that are out there that you might not know about. And actually within, for all of our camp directors out there who are with us today, maybe some things you might want to start having conversations about and consider in expanding your own program. So Father Anthony, I want to let you go first, and you can talk a little bit about the Special Olympics program at Antiochian Village.
Sure. A ministry of Teen Soya, which is the youth movement of the Antiochian Archdiocese, established nearly 40 years ago a one-week camping program here at the Antiochian Village for Pennsylvania Special Olympics. And so it's a one-week sports training program in which children and adults that are involved in Special Olympics in the state of Pennsylvania and their local programs come here, spend a week at camp, and are trained in various sports. They work in a primary sport, but then also get to experience a lot of other sports opportunities, but they also experience the full camp life because there are evening programs with dances and activities like that, meals in the dining hall, the full 9 yards, sleeping in the cabins and everything. And the unique thing too about that for us is that we have young people from our archdiocese who come and serve as coaches, not counselors, but coaches, because actually the majority of the participants are actually adults, the athletes that participate in the program. So it's always the week after our summer camping season, usually about the second to third week of August. So if there are any people with special needs in the state of Pennsylvania and they're involved in a local Special Olympics camping program, they can come be part of this one-week camp, and you can contact me afterwards to learn more about that.
Thanks, Father Anthony. At our camp, All Saints Camp, which is also, I don't think any of us said where our camps were. So Father Anthony is at Antiochian Village, which is in Bolivar, Ligonier, I don't know which one you say. Father and Pani are at Camp Nazareth, which is in Mercer, PA, and we are at All Saints Camp, which is in Emlenton, PA. So we're also all very close to each other in proximity. We have developed a program which actually very graciously Pani Darius sits on our advisement committee called the St. Nicholas Program. And we've kind of opened it up this year, and it is a special needs family camp. So if you have a family member of any age who has a unique need, you can come to camp with them, either it's your whole family or one family member. And the program is tailored for our faithful with unique needs. We have sensory friendly, I don't want to say friendly, but sensory sensitive services, or if we might have to dim the lights or modify how we use incense. We have time for our campers to go and have their religious ed classes or their crafts. We also bring in guest speakers for the families, for the parents, to talk about what it's like. We have different situations and needs sometimes when we're parents with kids who have unique needs. And I know, like, two of my support people in my support circle, or 3 people in my support circle, you're looking at them with me right now. And it's important to have those people in your lives that you can talk to. And we provide that during the St. Nicholas program. It's a 4-day program. It's a little shorter. And, you know, if, again, like Father Anthony said, if it's something that you would be interested in maybe contemplating starting where you have your camping ministry, please give me a call and we can talk about the format we've set up. You know, one of the things we kind of modeled it on our Mommy and Me, Daddy and Me program, in that we have their big brothers and big sisters, but at this program we have what we call family angels. And that's basically a staff member that's assigned to every family to kind of become a part of your family, but, you know, to be there to help you in any way that's needed while you're with us at the camp. So just wanted to talk to you about that St. Nicholas program, and that it is possible to maybe develop that in your area, in your camping ministry. So I just want to let you know about that. Father Punny, was there anything you wanted to add in this area about other offerings that we know about or that we have? I think what you brought up was a great one, is just already utilizing your family camps that we have. Yeah. I also want to, go ahead, Father.
No, I had nothing else. No, you said it all.
Okay. I also wanted to touch a little bit, Father Anthony, when you had mentioned the Camp at Home program that you have, that this is something else that we could all modify for those of us that are in camping ministry, is maybe offering a day camp experience in your local area that mirrors what your camp does, but isn't actually at camp. Or maybe it is at camp if people can travel for the day. But maybe if your camp is, say, about 2 or 3 hours from a major city, maybe you have your program in that city, and you can maybe rent a grove so it is outside, you know, rent a grove at a camp, or have it on a parish property that has a bigger property, and, you know, provide a day camp experience, you know, for our young people who maybe can't sleep overnight somewhere else. So I think we have so many possibilities of what we can do with our camping ministry, you know, if we can sort of find the time to expand our ministries, but also have discussions like this where we can have different ideas and perspectives and outlooks brought to us. So I'm going to ask one more time if we have any questions from our participants. I keep looking in our question box. I hope I'm not missing them somehow. I'll give it another minute or two. So in wrapping up, Father Stephen Panidaria, Father Anthony, do you have any final thoughts for everyone as we kind of go back and think about, you know, how we minister to our young people with unique needs at our programs?
My sort of final thought is that parents, as we are, parents are partners in this endeavor, that we partner together to make a great experience for our children at camp, accommodate, put a plan in place. But in this way, we're partners. And, you know, I've grown up right along with our son Joshua in my sort of own understanding of who he is. And my understanding of who he was at 10 years old is not the same as my understanding of who he is at 18. My understanding of who he was at 5 years old and his impact on the world, and what I thought he was capable of, and what I thought was in his wheelhouse, and what I thought he would be able to do, is so much different now. So parents are partners, and we develop our understanding right along with our children who have unique needs, who they are, what they're capable of, what we're capable of, what we want to offer them. And I sometimes there might be a disconnect, might see the capability of our children and not have something that can bring it out. On the other hand, there may be things that they can participate in, but they're just not ready yet. And so just as a final word from a parent to a parent, from a director to a parent, we work together on that. And I always hope that it works. I always hope that it works. frankly, and honestly and truthfully, sometimes it does not. Because I'm not ready, the parent isn't ready, the child isn't ready, my staff isn't ready. We're just not ready. But that's okay, because I've learned as a parent of Joshua, that's okay. What can I do to put in place for the next time or next year, or how can I adapt? And just because now is one way doesn't mean that 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, it's going to be the same. So to parents, hang in there, with everything.
Thank you. Father Anthony, your final thoughts?
Yeah, just my final thought is, you're right, this is a partnership. We all ought to continue to advocate for our children. But the important thing, too, is knowing our limitations. And that's where those of us who are parents of children with unique needs can help educate us who are doing camp ministry. So I would encourage all of us to try to help educate one another so that we can be as accommodating and accepting of all campers that want to spend time at camp, and just make sure that we provide the best experience for all the kids. And I want to just thank all of you for your time. And the other thing is knowing that we have each other as support systems to help each other, to bounce ideas off of one another. So if there are camp directors out there that are thinking about how to incorporate programs or individuals with unique needs, don't hesitate to bounce ideas off us, to ask for help or materials or resources. We're here to help one another succeed.
And Father Anthony, you're so good at segues. So with Father Anthony saying that for us, we will send you a follow-up email after today with all of our contact information so that you can get in touch with us if you want to further the discussion or have questions. And we are making ourselves available to you, for that. I just want to give a little announcement. As I mentioned, this is a part of our ministry from the Committee for the Orthodox Youth Directors in North America. And our next webinar is going to be May 21st. And it is Youth Formation, Mentoring, Vocation, and Living the Faith, Discovering a Working Program for Teens and Young Adults. And our presenter is going to be Father Justin Mitchell, who it's St. George's Antiochian Church in Montreal. And they have been developing a program there. And it's been seeing a lot of fruit and success. And so we are going to have him as our next presenter, and we're very excited about that. So mark your calendars. I would like to thank Panidaria, Father Stephen, Father Anthony for joining me today, and for all of you for coming and being with us. And I think exploring and extending this really very important discussion on ministering to our young people, and I think all of our faithful with unique needs within the church. So thank you. Again, if you have questions, since you didn't have them now, please send them to us in the off season once you get that email from us. May our Lord bless you and keep you. For those of you doing camping ministry, we know that you are preparing right now. So may his grace and light shine upon you in your planning and in your execution this summer. And for parents that are with us, may he give you strength and grace in your continued ministry as a parent. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, attendees. And hopefully we'll see you at our next webinar. Oh, bye, Panidaria. Thank you. I just thanked you.
Thanks, Natalie.